This is my eucalyptus tree plantation. I planted these eucalyptus trees way back in 2014. In 2014, I planted them, and they took 6 good years to get mature. They matured in 2020, and I harvested the trees. The first generation trees, I harvested them, sold them, and benefited from them. However, I was using what we call just the power saw to cut the trees at the stems, and everything else, the roots were left in the ground. I was supposed to uproot the roots so that I could plant in more crops. But the uprooting of the roots, the stump, became very expensive for me, and therefore I couldn't actually uproot them. However, because they were not now interfering with the soil, the land, the canopy was reduced, it was bare land. Therefore, I started planting some crops. As you can see, I've just harvested some crops, beans, so to speak, from them. But then, after a while, I saw that there was now an upshoot. The stems, the roots which I had not uprooted, started producing more trees. Those are now the bigger ones that you can see. This is actually now a third generation. But even as you see the third generation, we still have more sprouting. You can see there is more sprouting. You can see the old stump. This was the old stump, which we just cut and left it in the soil, and then it shot, and it has now produced another tree. You can see some are still in the soil, not yet sprouting, but the indication therefore is that they are sprouting. Look at this. I cut the tree, the original tree, in 2020, but it keeps producing offsprings. You can see we cut and it reproduces. You cut and it reproduces. This is it. You can see the stem, the original one and the new one, and all that you can see here. Now, project management teaches about the concept of problem tree analysis. And we borrow from this concept that when you want to analyze a problem, the problem that we see, the leaves that we see here, the branches that we see here, and of course the stems that we see here, above the ground, what is visible to us is manifest of what's going on down there. Like we can say, why is this tree sprouting? Because the roots below were not removed. So you can cut the tree. But unless you uproot it and remove the roots, the trees will still keep coming up. This is the concept we borrow from here, the concept of the problem tree analysis. That when you see a problem, when you see a symptom, what is you're seeing on top, above the ground, are just symptoms, and of course the consequences of what is going on inside, below the ground. So if you do not remove the roots, the tree will still keep sprouting, as we have seen. You just cut and then leave the tree, it will definitely sprout again. Therefore, you are not doing any good job by just, cutting the tree, removing it, and leaving the root cause. Now, I want to use this concept, this problem tree analysis concept, to the situation that is now happening in our Kenya. My students of project management, our planners, legislators, organizations that are interested in solving the current Kenyan problems, I want to invite you to this short lecture. My name is Professor Henry Bwisa. I am a retired professor of entrepreneurship from the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. I am retired, but I am not tired. I am retired, but I'm not expired. And therefore, I want still to carry on my lectures, my education, my sharing of knowledge, even outside the university. I have just transferred my lecture hall lectures to now the field practicality. So from here, I want now to do the diagrammatic illustration of what we call the problem tree analysis. We are based, I'm using this as an example, that the problem tree analysis, which is a concept in project management and therefore even planning for our nation, we borrow from the real life situation of trees. We are now going to explain. Watch this, follow me. I'm now going to explain diagrammatically the problem tree analysis using the current situation in Kenya, the situation where we have demonstrations, and those demonstrations, therefore, as we shall see, have the root causes. So we can try to stop the demonstrations by shooting what we are seeing on the streets. That is what is above the ground. But by shooting, you have not removed the roots, and therefore, after some time, the roots which are still down there in the ground will sprout, and the problem will be manifested. And if you care, you can see that the sprouting is more now. It was initially one plant, but when you cut the stem and you leave it, what comes out is now more. You can see, for example, out here, there are now more trees coming out of one stem that was cut. What does that mean? It also means that when you want to suppress a problem, one problem that is already manifested itself, for example, by shooting, then after a while, the problems will multiply. So let's now try now to explain by illustration the situation in Kenya. We are talking about problem tree analysis, and the message is that when there is a symptom, when you see a tree like this one, green or not green, those, what you are seeing is a manifestation of what you are not seeing. And what you are seeing, therefore, is just a symptom. The real cause of why it is what you are seeing is hidden. And therefore, you to actually discover that, you have to do what we call cause root analysis. No, root cause analysis. And that is what I want to share. That is my opinion. And I invite scholars, politicians, commentators to probably critique it. Rather than criticize, let us look at it from a critical point of view, critique, so that we add value, we remove what is not real, or what is short, or what is not well explained, and we add to it the message. And the spirit should be, let us share. How do we solve our own problems? They are ours. We have to solve them, and this is really an appeal to all like-minded Kenyans. So let's go. What is this called? This thing called problem tree analysis. Let me carry you through. We are looking at a situation in Kenya today. This is July 2025. There are a number of demonstrations. These demonstrations are accompanied by looting. And now, none other the president has ordered to shoot those who loot, those who destroy property. And therefore, demonstrations leading to looting and leading to shooting. You can see kind of a progression, a tree, We have talked about the problem tree analysis in management. We have borrowed from project management. That what you see, what appears to be a problem, is actually a symptom of a problem. What, in terms of now environment, we use the problem tree, my eucalyptus farm. Above the ground is a problem, symptoms, and can also be consequences. But these demonstrations have their causes hidden. So let's do our root cause analysis, and let's go there. You can see that down that line, down that blue line, at the bottom, there is government incompetency and corruption. There is political patronage with sycophancy. And this lead to poor legislation. And when there is poor legislation, high cost of living creeps in. Bad prices for producers creep in. And therefore it leads to poor incomes. Poor incomes leading to poverty. And the poverty is one cause why people, Gen Zs, young people, everybody is demonstrating. Yes, it's none other than the president himself who, at one time, sacked all his cabinet, saying they were incompetent. So indeed, there's incompetence. Corruption is an open secret. Kenya has lots of corruption. Of course, political patronages. Yes, people who look like they do not have principles. There's also sycophancy. And when that happens, it is what, for example, in Kenya, the executive must have captured the legislature. What the executive wants is what the legislators do. And all this, therefore, can lead to that high cost of living because, consumer prices are high, you know, legislators are not focusing on the common man. It leads to some very bad prices, poor incomes, and poverty. So that is one root, underlying cause. Poor legislation will therefore also lead to high taxes. And when there are high taxes, there is high production costs. Poor legislation will also lead to competition from imports. Yes, we legislate government corruption, and therefore people import, no, politically correct people import. And when there is competition from imports, then the industry shrinks. And when the industry shrinks, there's unemployment. And unemployment is one cause for these demos. Most of the Gen Zs that you see on the streets are graduates who graduated and have no placement. So there you are. Sorry. Well, unemployment is also caused by education mismatch. We are working on borrowed education policy. Some of that policies are outdated. There is poor university industry linkages, and therefore the university produces graduates who do not fit in industry. We are looking at education mismatch. Therefore, policies that are borrowed, policies that encourage rote learning, policies that encourage only the cognitive domain learning, and therefore graduates graduate knowing, having a lot of knowledge, but hands-on, and if they are not employed, and unemployment causes all those demos. Yes, on campaign trails, non-ideology based political campaigns, start on the platform, say anything, promise anything, ideology is lost, not even, cannot recognize it. This leads to poor political representation, particularly the youth. The Gen Zs are poorly represented. No, non-ideology based political campaigns also need to empty promises. And when that happens, then the demos are there to be seen. We also have eroded societal norms, leading to poor parenting. Then we produce disillusioned, marginalized youth, and that also leads to the demonstrations. So there are a number of causes. By just shooting, we are not solving the problem, just like we have seen in the case of my eucalyptus trees. You cut the tree, the roots are still remaining, and therefore they germinate and they sprout. You shoot and kill somebody, but the root causes that we have seen, you have not changed. Legislation is still bad. Unemployment is still great. The industry is shrinking. So whatever you do above the ground, if you're not supported by corrections below the ground, then it's just postponing the question. The problem is postponed. And if this persists, a situation like this persists, then we are likely to lead into a failed state. And therefore, like I said, this is just, probably a provocation. Should we not address the root causes of the demos? Is the ultimate shooting a solution? No, it's not a solution. And therefore, let us do our root cause analysis for our demonstrations as we see them and address it. Yes, what are the consequences? The consequences I've said, if this persists, then we have a failed state. Watch this space. This is called a problem tree analysis. But I will, from this problem tree, you can now generate an objective tree analysis. The objective tree analysis shows us some of the options that we can make to address the root causes. And once you have addressed the root causes, then the demos diminish, the demos end. For example, if the promises were given are fulfilled, then why should the Gen Zs demonstrate? If there is employment, why should they demonstrate? If we have aligned our education and we're matching our education to openings in the labor market, why should there be demonstrations? If poverty is addressed, why should there be demonstrations? So, strategies to eliminate and eradicate demos are found below the surface, the root cause analysis. I hope this has made some sense. I hope it has provoked you to think further. Students of project management, you can now apply the theory in class to real situations. Our legislators, please, you can now do some advising, some soul searching, and let's address the root causes of these demos, and it will be home and dry. Thank you. I was your entrepreneurship tutor, Professor Henry Buisa, retired from Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. Retired but not tired, retired but not expired. Thank you.